Welcome to the first edition of Insight for Fall 2010.
On this episode, we'll take you to new heights as we discuss things that fly. Today's show is brought to you by the letter F, just like the grade we're about to get. So don't go away, Insight starts now. Welcome to Insight. I'm your host, Cody Peterson.
And I'm your more beautiful host, Adriana Salazar. We're going to get high with producer Drew Nelson.
But first, we're going to get sticky with Ben Bennett as he takes us through the day in the life of bees.
Hello, my name is Ben with Insight News. Today we'll be taking a look at the mysterious life of bees and what it's like to be a beekeeper. Let's take a closer look at the day in the life of bees.
Ready? Mm-hmm. My name's Alan Bennett. I'm a beekeeper. I have to go out there in the spring every week to see if they have enough food and feed them. I feed them sugar water. In the spring, that's 1 cup sugar to 1 cup water, and it takes about a gallon a week. So and then in early spring, I have to check for swarm cells too. Look for queen cells, and if I get those in the spring, I have to cut them out to try to prevent swarming, because I don't want them to swarm, because if they swarm, half the hive leaves with the old queen, and the new queen will hatch out and they will start over, but then I'll only have half a hive for when the honey flow comes on. And the honey flow is when everything goes into bloom and the bees go crazy and go out and get all the nectar that they can to make all the honey. The more bees I have, the more honey I get. I start getting them ready for winter, middle of September, towards the end of September. I take my honey box off and don't leave 2 boxes for the bee stores and their brood chambers. And I need to leave about 100 pounds of honey for the bees to winter over on. And when in the winter, if it gets colder than 55 to 50 degrees outside, then they can't go out. They're paralyzed. It's too cold for the bees to go out. So they get in a winter cluster, they call it, and they ball up in the center of the hive and rub their wings together for friction, and it stays a constant 90 degrees in the middle of the winter hive, even if it gets down in the teens outside. I got into raising bees 8 years ago in 2002. I got my first hive because I thought it'd be kind of fun to raise bees and have our own honey, kind of like a own family label. And then I got 3 hives now. People was after me to sell some honey and I didn't have enough, so I got 2 more hives. I have 1 out in Magna and 2 out in Grantsville.
I had the opportunity to sit down with the property owners that house a hive or 2 for Alan.
I'm Brent Dixon. I've known Alan's for 30 years or so. I don't mind having the bees. And they've only stung me a couple of times, I think. I've got enough property that they weren't going to bother me. Plus I thought that maybe by having beehives closer that they'd have bees for the garden, because I do have a garden that I like to keep every year. I don't know that it's been better, but I know that when other people complain that they never see any bees, at least I can say that I see some bees. As far as I know, the neighbors don't know that they're there, which is fine with me. No, when I'm around the bees, I just kind of ignore them and hope that they'll ignore me. When I mow the lawn or anything, if I'm back there, I kind of can identify where their flight path is because they kind of come in and out the same direction all the time, and I'll either duck through it or walk around it. Because every once in a while, they're not good drivers, and they'll plow into you.
My name's Conrad Schultz. I live in Grantsville, big time. Go ahead.
I'm Carlene Schultz.
Well, we had, let's see, we've lived here for about 17, 18 years, and off and on had could see the need for a better pollination than we were getting, although we weren't active in looking for anything. Mm-hmm. And when he mentioned that he had some experience with beehives and could place them different places and kind of offered it, we jumped at it. Thought it'd be a real advantage for us. It might not be an advantage for him, but plus it was interesting. We knew nothing about it and thought this would be really kind of fun to learn a little bit about something we know nothing about. Prior to him coming out, bees were just there, didn't pay any attention at all. Since he put the bees out there, we've learned to look at a lot of things that, or I personally, a couple of things. One thing was that the fact that they need a water source, and we have a sprinkler across the field that has a leaking valve and a cap, and it sprays. It has a real fine mist coming out of it. And there's bees around there all the time. And now wherever you find, whenever we have the watering system, we'll have a cap that has a drip or something, and you'll find bees around, a lot of bees around it. Most of the time during the day, you'll see some there, and had never even thought about it before, but now we watch things like that and notice to see if there are bees there, and if they're missing, we wonder why they're missing and that kind of thing. So we've learned a lot about bees that didn't even think about before and didn't know anything about.
The first year he brought them here he had an abundant amount of honey, and they did really, really well. The second year, they'd had some cows out in our field, and they'd knocked one of the hives over, and the bees froze and died, so he had to have new bees.
I lost a hive out Magna when the canal company came and sprayed. Some of the spray got over on my hive and killed my hive.
We had a horrible spring because when they first started to come out, things were blossoming and the bees first started to come out, and all of a sudden we got a cold snap for about 10 days to 2 weeks. The temperatures didn't get above the 30s for the highs, and the lows were about 33, 34, so it was just too cold. I'd go out and look at the peach trees all the time. They were just loaded with blossoms, the peaches and the apricots, but there were no bees in them because it was just too cold, and I walked over by their hives. They weren't even flying around their hives.
Last 2 years has been not real good for the honey crop. Last year they said they had a lot of grasshoppers out in Grantsville and they ate all the blossoms.
Well, the real thought was that it was kind of telling on Alan to come out here once a week for one hive. He'd be much more productive if he had more than one. And we thought, well, if we bought one and could come to an agreement with something that was fair for him to take care of it, we could learn how that all comes about. And we did. We, from the day that he told us where he had to go to get the boxes and all the other stuff, and how he brought the bees out and the queen and all that sort of stuff was a learning experience for us. So it was, and hopefully it was productive for him as well. But it started from the fact that we could see him coming out faithfully every no more than like a 2-week spread for a single hive, and we thought, gee, if we can help that a little bit and learn something, and that's why we started.
Well, and have some honey of our own too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I usually get my first harvest of honey about July 4th, and the average one is about 40 pounds a box. So I get about 40 pounds on a hive July 4th if it's a good year. The first time I put my honey in the county fair was 7 years ago. I called them up and there wasn't an entrance for honey. I guess I was the first person to put it in the county fair, but now they have it online and in the county website so anybody can put it in. And, there's been more people that's been putting it in, and every year though my honey's award winning. I get quite a few ribbons for it every year in the county and the state fair. It's kind of fun. I like to kid everybody saying my honey's an award winning honey.
Good experience.
Yes.
And a lot of it's been Alan. We haven't worried, with the exception of when the cows got in there and knocked the one over. It's really been totally painless for us, and it's because Alan has taken care of it. We don't worry about it. We don't know what to do. Every now and then I would go out, like when the weather starts changing and it gets cool, I'd go out and stand by the hive just to see what kind of activity there was, just how the temperature regulates the activity and that kind of thing. But it's been really painless for us. We haven't had to do anything, so it was a true benefit for us.
God, that's good.
Where can we get more of this delicious award-winning honey?
We can get it at the local farmers market at 33rd South and 5th East, Tuesday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. Wanna get high? Stick around.
Come feel the magic at the Festival of Trees, where lights don't just sparkle, they inspire a message of hope and healing for children at Primary Children's Medical Center. Bring your family and share in the wonder of one of the world's largest displays of decorated Christmas trees. Enjoy activities for children, live entertainment, handmade gifts, and Santa. Wednesday, December 1st through Saturday, December 4th at the Southtown Expo Center. Festival of Trees, a gift of love for 40 years, and the magic continues.
Nothing good on the radio.
Are you tired of boring radio programs?
What? Who said that?
It's me, your radio. Do you think you could do a better job?
I totally could.
The Communication Department of Salt Lake Community College offers multiple courses for students to gain experience in the radio field. Just call 801-957-4124.
Welcome back. You're watching Insight, a learning program for communication students or anyone else who is a shameless camera whore, like me.
Nice contribution, Adriana. Well, the wait's over. SLCC student Drew Nielsen took the time to get high with SOAR Utah.
Let's take a look.
Anybody can fly a retrieval airplane. Well, there's a couple steps. First of all, you got to see if you're really interested, and then the next step is find somebody that flies or go to a local flying site. Find somebody that's willing to help you out, whether you join the club.
I joined Intermountain Silent Flyers, which is dedicated primarily to sailplane events, and from that they have every 2 years they have an event. It's called out here at Point of the Mountain, it's called SOAR Utah, where people from all over the world, we've had occasion for them to come in and participate, and everybody has the same involvement. A lot of people like scale airplanes, a lot of people like racing airplanes that fly on the slopes. You have slope races, as well as just fun flying. You can spend as much as you want in the hobby or as little as you want. A lot of the planes that we have for this event, we have 3 different events. One is scale, one is molded, and another one is foam, which are the PSS planes, which are replica models of the ones World War II, the vintage planes that were there. Most of them are built out of foam. They have panel lines that make them look exactly to scale, the detail that you put a lot of time in, and it's just a real fun time.
Well, I started flying when I was 13 years old, and I flew control line planes. They're not radio control, but there's strings going to the plane, and you have a handle, and you go around in a circle, and you can just control the pitch of the up and down pitch of the aircraft. And then I got a radio control and built my first glider and flew that, and then I flew powered planes for quite a while, and I flew pretty consistently until I was about 16, and I got into high school and I had other things going, and I actually quit flying for quite a while. And then I started flying when I was about 24. I flew gliders, powered gliders, for a short time and got out of it again. And then when I was 30, I was just kind of looking for something new to do, and that's when electric airplanes were just coming out, and started flying electric. And then I had a friend who introduced me to slope soaring, and I started flying slope soaring gliders, which is what this event is primarily all about. And I sold everything that had a motor, and since then I've just strictly flown slope soaring gliders for the last 7 or 8 years, I guess.
I've been flying radio-controlled airplanes since 1968. Got involved as a child, about 7. Started building control line models, and then later on went with radio control. Was fortunate to have a lot of friends who kept me involved. Later on ended up in the racing program and ended up participating in a lot of the races here, and then got in the Formula Ones, which was the faster airplanes.
My company is Wyoming Windworks. We make high-performance radio-controlled gliders. We use a mix of composite materials, fiberglass, epoxy, carbon fiber, Kevlar, and we also use various foams and woods, balsa wood, specialized plywoods, things like that. So,
a lot of people want to start out with a nice jet, but you've got to start out with a simple airplane, one that's easy to fly. And there's a couple ways you can buy a simulator, but those will help you get into flying without having to worry about crashing. You can crash 100 times on the simulator, it won't cost you a penny.
The festival here at Point of the Mountain got started about 9 years ago. We are very fortunate in Utah to have a slope that's one of the few in the entire world where in the mornings we have a north wind or a south wind, and in the evenings we have a north wind. And just because of that, we have so much emphasis put on it. We have that luxury that we've now attracted hang gliders, paragliders, and things like that. We share the slope with the hang gliders and paragliders, and for one weekend every other year we have the option of closing the slope down, and where we can bring all these other people in and have more people flying and
all right.
share.
Well, there are builders and there are flyers. In these events you'll see a lot of guys who just love to build. That's their passion. Sometimes they're good pilots, a lot of times they're not the greatest pilots. And then you have people who just love to fly, and a lot of times they're the guys who've got the beat up planes. They're just smashed up, but that's all they want to do is fly. And yeah, you got an intermix of people in between there who like to build and fly. I like to build and fly. Yeah.
The planes you can do a lot of different ways. With the new CAD programs and the airfoil programs, what you do is you pick a plane that you like. You can go ahead and download the program. You can go ahead and cut the wings, the airfoils on it out of foam, and then you can vacuum bag them or put carbon, Kevlar, and other composites in to make the wings a lot stronger. This particular aircraft that I have in front of me is all carbon. It's a molded plane. It's done in a mold, and it has carbon in it. As a result of the carbon, it has a problem with getting the radio waves to the antennas and that. And so what we do is we exit these with the antennas on both sides of the fuselage there.
In slope soaring gliders, there's pretty much 3 different construction techniques. The first one is an EPP foam. It's a bouncy compressible foam, and usually those are cut out by some machine or a hot wire cutter, and they're glued together and they're covered with a special plastic or a film, and the radio compartment goes in there. Those are great to learn on because they can bounce, or if your landing zones are really rocky, they'll just, you know, bounce and you don't have to care. They're not super expensive. Then the next one is what's called stick construction, and that's little pieces of balsa wood that are cut out and glued together, sometimes over a plan. You know, you've got the plans and you cut out all the pieces, or sometimes they're cut out for you, and they're all glued together over a plan, and that makes the structure, and then that is covered with a plastic film, or in the olden days it was like a tissue paper and a special material called dope. You'd brush it on and it would make the tissue paper shrink, or they'd actually use silk. But the modern technique is typically a heat shrink covering material. Goes on with an iron, and then it heated up and it shrinks, gets all nice and pretty. And then the other technique is a composite glider, and those are constructed typically in a mold, and you're using fiberglass, Kevlar, carbon fiber fibers with some type of polymer like epoxy or polyester, and mixing those together in the mold, and then close up the molds and it all cures, and then you pop it out and you've got these wonderful parts that you trim up and clean up, and those are typically the most expensive. Typically gliders like that can be around $2,000.
A lot of people get frustrated because they'll take the airplane home, charge it up, and go crash it. And they'll put it away and never want to fly it again. But if you take those steps, if you find somebody that knows what they're doing, if you find somebody that's willing to help, and you're patient, anybody can fly a radio control airplane.
What we do is we go ahead and we have on Thursday evening and Friday evening, what we'll do is we'll go have an opening. It's just a social. Come out and talk and get to know one another, do some registrations. On Friday, we have an event called the Aerotow, and we are very fortunate to have the salt flats available for us, where we take motorized airplanes and we'll pull scale airplanes up and releasing them, and then the sailplanes will go ahead and fly. And we have that option made available to us through the BLM. And we have the luxury, a lot of times these big airplanes on landing, if you have a crosswind or something like that, the wingtips they'll catch in the grass and they'll spin the airplanes around and sometimes even do damage to it. But with the salt flats being as flat as they are, it's easy for them to land and not hurting the planes or anything else.
Well, mostly online is how I've met most of the people. There's local clubs. There's a lot of club organizations within, cities or states that host gatherings that you get together within your state or within your region. And then there's, some U.S.-wide or even international contests or gatherings. And the awesome thing about slope flying is there's it's not a high degree of competition. It's mostly just about having fun and flying and hanging out and enjoying, the people. So it's not a super competitive environment like a lot of RC competitions. RC airplane competitions can be really highly competitive, and I don't like those.
About 8 or 9 years ago, we've come into dynamic soaring, and what happened was Joe Wirtz and Pat Bowman were out of California. We're flying down there at a hill. The airplane got behind the hill, and they tried to bring it back up, and they noticed that the airplane came as fast back out of it as it did going down, where most of the time you get in the rotor and the airplanes tumble. So they brought it back, and now it's called dynamic soaring. The record is 445 miles an hour. The airplanes are 100 inches, the kinetic that holds the world record, and it weighs about 200 ounces, so it's quite heavy.
And yeah, it's my favorite form of flying. No motor, you can fly for an hour, 2 hours straight, because there's no motor or power for the motor that's needed. So
Nowadays you can buy an airplane that's factory assembled. All you need to do is pull out of the box, put in a few screws, charge up the battery, and go. Anybody can fly a remote control airplane.
So, do you really think anybody can do it?
Absolutely. Watch and learn.
Well done! Thanks for joining us today on Insight. I'm Adriana Salazar.
And I'm Cody Peterson. You stay classy, Salt Lake Community College. See you next time.
When I gave up everything, open up wide and swallow these words you spoke. Only time can heal these open wounds I feel. Nothing doors for these closed.
Student news. Do you want to do this? Or how about this? How about the director's chair? Or maybe on air. Is the written word more your style? Do you want to learn the art of communication? Do you want to learn all this and more? Then you should be here! Become a communication major at Salt Lake Community College. Register today.